Hey man, when you gotta get a kitty cat bracelet, you've gotta get a kitty cat bracelet. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2021 action thriller, Nobody. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and recommendations. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and even some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Nobody stars Bob Odenkirk, Aleksei Serebryakov, and Connie Nielsen, and was directed by Ilya Naishuller. It tells the story of a dull, put-upon family man who reverts to his violent former self after his family becomes the target of a brutal crime lord. There's comfort in familiarity. Cinematic originality is a topic of near constant debate and discussions these days. Usually, it comes up in the context of franchises, in response to the seemingly constant barrage of sequels, prequels, remakes, and reboots. Add to that all of the films based on non-movie IPs, the books and comics, the TV shows, the video games, and you've got a decent percentage of annual films being directly based on something you might already be familiar with. But what about the original films that don't actually feel so original? The movies with no existing connection to an IP that somehow still feel extraordinarily familiar. This familiarity is sometimes deliberate, sometimes unintentional, but is most often the case within particularly trope-laden genres like action and horror. When movies are part of the same genre, they may sometimes feature similar character archetypes and follow predictable paths, hitting all the same plot beats, while still telling a slightly different story. I mean, there's a reason It's Die Hard on a blank became such a common way to pitch action movies. Sure, creative new stories are great, but when it comes to certain genres, revenge action thrillers for example, a bit of familiarity can sometimes be the key to enhancing the experience. Nobody is a prime example of one of those types of movies. While very fun, the idea of a family man with a special set of violent skills from a former life suddenly needing to come out of retirement, so to speak, in order to protect those he loves is far from new. I mean, Liam Neeson built a whole career resurgence out of exactly that type of movie, beginning with Taken more than a decade and a half ago. Other secret past life action thrillers, like John Wick, have cut out the dad angle of the story, instead prioritizing the stylized action. In fact, when watching Nobody, it'll probably come as a surprise to nobody that both this film and John Wick were written by the same person, Derek Kolstad. Obviously, there are some clear plot similarities, and some will view Nobody as a lesser imitation of Wick, but it does utilize a different approach, a different type of action, a different type of lead character, even a different tone. Nobody is a very simple story, but one that works in spite of some script issues, beyond the overfamiliarity, of course. The family home life scenes don't hit on quite the emotional level that the film clearly intended, and there are a few unnecessary subplots and moments of exposition. But I at least can look past most of that because of how purely entertaining and action-packed the film is. So let's talk about that action. As with the story, there's not all that much we haven't seen before in previous action films. We've seen people take kettles of boiling water to the face. We've seen people get thrown out of windows. We've seen brutal Home Alone-style booby trap setups. But just because we've seen most of the individual action pieces used here, that doesn't mean the way in which those pieces are assembled isn't still immensely enjoyable. People will obviously make comparisons to John Wick because of the writer connection, and there are definitely some similar action aspects, like the long takes and impressive 8711 crafted choreography, but the action here does still manage to feel like it has its own identity. It's brutal, bloody, and extremely hard-hitting. The main character takes about as much of a beating as everybody else does, and he's often slow to get up and clearly in pain. So even though the action is very stylized and over the top, it still feels grounded in a counterintuitively heightened way. You can just about almost believe that a guy like Hutch could have the training and skills to do all of these things. There's not all that much on the wiki and gun-fu front here, but these entertaining fights make even more use of whatever's on hand for the characters. Pieces of the set and everyday props become weapons in the hands of Hutch, the aforementioned kettle, or a bus's stop-requested pull cord. Combine that with more traditional action props like grenades and claymores, and you've got an explosively entertaining time that's funny, but never silly, ensuring that the action remains satisfyingly brutal. As Christopher Lloyd's character so eloquently puts it, it's a bit excessive, but glorious. Speaking of Christopher Lloyd, let's talk about the characters. Lloyd is a very fun addition to the cast, especially when he gets in on the action, but to be honest, for the most part, the characters aren't a big draw here. The villain and his henchmen, the family, they all come and go throughout the story a bit unmemorably. The one character exception, of course, is Hutch, the nobody of nobody. As I've mentioned a few times in this review, Hutch is a very familiar type of character in this dad subset of revenge action thriller. He's probably most similar to Liam Neeson's now typical characters, but there is something different about him. This is a man who loves his family, but has definitely become frustrated by the monotony of his life, irritated by his unfulfilling job, frustrated by the distant relationship with his wife, embarrassed and hurt by his son's mistaken beliefs regarding his capabilities. All of these things combine to result in a different kind of character. He doesn't just revert back to his old ways purely out of family-protecting necessity. He does it out of enjoyment, too. There are several points in the story where he could stop, choices he could make to defuse the situation. But the truth is, he wants to fight. He misses the excitement. That smirk he gives at the back of the bus, his smile while getting shot at in the car, his crossed fingers as he waits and hopes for the bad guys to take the bait and come after him. It's an interesting personality blend for the character, and Bob Odenkirk is great at portraying both sides. The mild-mannered, hapless dad side of the character seems closer to Odenkirk's natural state, but he's also very good at that playfully dark side, too. And with all the ass he kicks throughout this film, you'd never guess that this was his first action movie. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is definitely the action. It may be just a bit excessive, but it sure is glorious. Admittedly, there's little we haven't seen before in other movies, but that doesn't stop this film's bloody, hard-hitting action and entertainingly choreographed fight sequences from being a whole lot of fun. There's an overarching funny tone to much of the action, with plenty of amusing little bits of humor, but it never devolves into something silly, instead taking the audience on a series of stylized bare-knuckle rides as Hutch destroys the bad guys, and takes quite a beating himself, too. The second pro has gotta be Bob Odenkirk. Not bad for his first action movie. In fact, it's pretty damn great for his first action movie. In conjunction with his stunt double, he not only delivers on the physicality of the role, but also the character's dual-layered personality, that of the mild-mannered family man, and of the bored and frustrated trained killer who's just itching for a fight so he can feel that excitement again. It's a familiar type of role in a familiar type of story, but Odenkirk imbues a little something different to it to give us the entertaining leading man, Hutch. On the con side, the biggest issue is the script. Yes, it's a very familiar story written by the same guy who wrote John Wick. Yes, there are plenty of plot and character similarities to the Wick films, tossed with a dash of 2010's Liam Neeson. But the script issues are less a problem of overfamiliar story simplicity and more a case of poor dialogue and pacing. There's too much dialogue given to and with the antagonist. Too many stilted, dialogue-heavy family scenes in Hutch's home. I can understand the desire to provide characterization of the main players, to deliver exposition as a means of backstory, but Nobody is a film that works much better when it's visually telling its story rather than verbally telling it. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Nobody or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies or anything else. I'm gonna give Nobody 4 out of 5 paws. I was going back and forth between 3.5 and 4, and while the story familiarity and other script issues probably push this more into 3.5 paw territory, I always just have too much fun with it not to give it a 4. Bob Odenkirk's action debut is a blast, with a simple but driving revenge story, a fun humor-balancing tone, and some exciting, hard-hitting, knuckle-bloodying action sequences that are as violent as they are entertaining. I would recommend Nobody to anybody looking for a fun and violent action movie. This has a lot of similarities to other recent revenge action thrillers like John Wick, but you're probably not a stickler for originality if you like this genre, so that works out. It's funny without being silly, and the action certainly packs a blood-gushing punch. Nobody is definitely a bit of a dad movie, both in the sense that it's about a dad, and that it's an action film that the prototypical dad would really enjoy, but that doesn't prevent it from being a solid actioner for any genre fan to have a great time with. If you liked Nobody, I would recommend A History of Violence. Another dad thriller, this David Cronenberg-directed stylistic outlier focuses on a family man whose violent past unexpectedly catches up with him, not only putting his family in danger, but also straining his relationships. If you'd like another killer comes out of retirement story, you've gotta watch John Wick. There are quite a few plot similarities between these films, partly due to sharing the same writer. This is an especially good choice for anybody looking for some stylized, impressively choreographed and filmed action sequences. And if you're interested in another solid dad revenge thriller, you might want to check out The Foreigner. Jackie Chan plays against type here, as a former soldier seeking vengeance for a deadly attack in London. It's a bit of a formulaic movie, but offers up some entertainingly brutal action and political thriller twistiness. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Nobody? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about a dad with a surprising past? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information on this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.